we're back to Jon Stewart, though. Before we started filming this, you were talking about how you had seen some liberals being upset about Stewart's view on Palestine. Since we're on the topic,
Yeah, yeah. He was because the thing about Jon Stewart is he's a very good friend of Bassem Youssef. And Bassem Youssef has
he's great.
been very, very vocal. Very and so like and honestly, I would love to do a segment on Bassem Youssef alone because he's just throughout this whole situation, he has been so fucking good at cutting right through Zionist propaganda in the most like simple and fucking methodical of ways. But yeah, he's really good friends with Bassem Youssef. He's Jon Stewart is partially is why he's so popular now. And Jon Stewart, I remember in the beginning was very vocal of Yusuf's like talks about Palestine. And I was just seeing on Twitter about how that has shifted a lot of views of Jon Stewart to like I saw like an article. They were like, oh, is should Jon Stewart be the right is Jon Stewart the right person to be in the Daily Show now? Like that's what they were talking about in regards to his not only his Biden but his views on Palestine. And I find that really interesting, find it very, very fascinating because for all intents and purposes, Jon Stewart is not like a crazy like he's
Fidel
not like,
Castro,
oh,
he is not.
Israel
Yeah,
doesn't have yeah, you know what I mean? Right. Like he's not a fucking communist. You know what I mean? Like even in his views, he offers the most what I would consider, in my opinion, lukewarm like attacks on Democrats like Biden and stuff like that. Like he could go way harder. He could go way harder. He could say a lot more that he doesn't. And I find it interesting that I think the Overton window has shifted so far right that somebody like Jon Stewart, who in any other context would just be like a moderately left person, is now considered to be like this far left, like, oh, he's moving too far left because he's just a little too mean to Joe Biden and he's a little like he's a little too vocal about
he
his
thinks
support for Palestine.
Palestinians are people. What the fuck? Yeah,
Right.
that's something like
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Yeah, uh,
Yeah.
and Stewart. So about yeah, Stewart is he's kind of like John Oliver, like a gateway leftist. Like he's
Mm.
not, we wouldn't call him a
Yeah.
leftist, but yeah, you can see like he's someone who's at least talked to a leftist, and you can tell. And but
Yeah.
Stewart, it's
Yeah.
funny because I remember one of the earliest critiques I ever heard about the Zionist movement was from Jon Stewart, and this is light years ago. I mean, light years is distance, not time, TJ. This is years ago, but that I
You're
remember
such a
him.
nerd. Only you would make that distinction. Could have
But
just let it slide.
yeah, most people probably wouldn't even have caught it. You're right, but I gotta stay
Nobody
true to
would.
myself. But I remember him watching the Daily Show years ago and hearing him talk about
Mm.
that. Yeah, Hamas had fired some rockets into Israel, and now the IDF is sniping 13-year-old girls from the walls. And it's like, all right,
Yeah.
so you have the Palestinians and Hamas who are building rockets out of sewer pipes and fireworks and just launching them unguided into Israel, and
Yeah.
nobody died. It hit a couple buildings and stuff, and now 100 Palestinians are dead. That doesn't seem to be a proportionate response. And it was one of the first times I ever heard anyone
Right.
say that. And this was a long time ago.
Right.
So he has some credibility on there that he has at least had thoughts
Yeah.
like this for a long time.
Yeah. No, and I cool. And you can really see the track record of those who like you can really tell the difference between those who have been like longstanding like supporters of Palestine and longstanding like anti-Zionist people and those who are now speaking on it because they're to see this genocide up all falling real now because and this is why I have so much respect for the people that were doing it before because there was never this level of it was never cool
No,
to be anti-Zionist.
no.
It was never a popular thing to do. It was always dangerous for your career. And
Yeah.
I mean, this just like we made Israeli soldier like a superhero in a major fucking comic book franchise. You know what I mean? Like we made an ex-Israeli soldier a superhero in a major comic book franchise. This goes to show you that it was always cool to be pro-Zionist and never cool to be anti-Zionist. And so I have to have like just immense respect for anybody that doing this fucking before last year that was talking about it, because very few people were, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was pretty. Yeah. So I years ago, a friend of mine went on a uh what is it called, a heritage tour through Israel.
Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
remember before she went, because she didn't know she was Jewish. She found out, through DNA tests or whatever. She found out, and so she was really excited about this. Like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
And then she told me that she was going to do this, and I thought, I was like, oh, I know what these are. I was like, these are just propaganda,
Propaganda tools.
excursions to convert you into being,
Yeah.
a bloodthirsty Zionist. And one of my biggest regrets is that I didn't say anything about that to her before she went. I didn't do it. I
Mhm.
wasn't, I had honestly kind of just figured this shit out myself over the years. And so I was like, oh,
Right.
okay.
Right.
And she came back, and now that's exactly what she is. And it is
You.
heartbreaking. It is
Mhm.
devastating because she was a very good friend of mine.
Yeah.
And it's just,
Yeah.
uh, and like you said, the propaganda, it just runs so deep.
It's too
And
good.
yeah, and
Yeah.
like you said, it covers the media too, because I saw there's a comedian, Bobby Lee. I saw him talking about how they offer these
Mhm.
to celebrities for free, who aren't. Bobby Lee is
Yeah.
Korean, he's not Jewish. So why would he need to go on a legacy tour? But they
Right.
brought him on
Right.
board because they want, representation through, popular
Mhm.
people to help, spread. And the fact that
Unnecessary.
it's 35 or 38 states in the union in which
Yeah.
it's illegal to boycott the Israel, or it's not illegal to
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
boycott or divest or sanction the Israeli government, but if you participate in one, the state will not hire you. Like, it is against the laws of the state for you to be a state
Yeah.
employee
It's
and
very
for
weird.
which is insanity.
That
Like,
is
that's how strong
strange.
this has gone.
That is the most fucking mind-numbing thing to think about, dude. Like, I don't
Even for
think
us, it's weird that that's legal.
I don't understand. Even for us, like as America, how the ways in which Israel has its fingers deep inside the American economy and the government and the fucking legal system is a doozy. Like, I don't even get it. It really goes to show you, like kind of what you said about how we're in so deep in our relationship with Israel that it's just like an anything goes type of situation. But I was going to talk about what you said about the propaganda, being that it is really deep, because I've been a leftist, or like I've always had progressive views, but I've been an informed leftist since I was like
Mhm.
18. I'm like 23 now. But that the Israel and Palestine was the very last thing, as our article I held on to it until I was like, geez, I gotta say, like, it wasn't, and it's embarrassing to say that it wasn't even that long ago. It was literally until like 2021 until
Mhm.
I spoke to an actual fucking Palestinian person. And because I was just like, it's complicated. Like,
Both
I
you
was just like,
kids
oh,
calm down, Yes. Yeah.
right, you're right. That's what we're told. That's what we're all told. Oh, it's too complicated to speak about. So if you don't know everything about it, then Israel, Palestine, maybe they both should be allowed to live free. You think that that's the right answer. You think that that's what you're supposed to be saying. It wasn't until I spoke to a Palestinian person and got some actual historical context and actually like really informed myself on what the fuck was going on before I realized, how have we been letting this slide for 70 years? Like, how have we been letting this all go on, dude? It's insane. It's
It
propaganda
is. It
alone.
really is. It really is. There's a great documentary Abby Martin did. I don't know if you're familiar with Abby Martin from Empire Files, but she did an amazing
Mhm.
documentary talking about the beginnings of the Zionist movement back in like the 1800s, and how it grew into, colonizers coming to Palestine in the early 1900s, and then the full-blown Zionist movement and the establishment of Israel in 1948. And she talks
Yeah.
about how a lot of prominent Jewish intellectuals at the time were
Mhm.
abhorred by this shit. Like Albert Einstein
Yeah.
wrote like a letter for the New York Times talking about, listen, I do not see a difference between what the Israeli government is doing and what the German government did. He said it was exactly the same to him. And this is what really bothers. This is why it makes it so difficult, because like when you were talking about how the Israeli government, with AIPAC and everything, they have their control over politicians in our government. They have controls over the media and money. It starts to sound like uncomfortably similar to to anti-Semitic talking points. And it's like, I hate that. I hate it so much because there's this, we've conflated being Jewish with being Israeli, and they are not the same. Exactly. They're not, but to a lot of people, they and honestly, I get it. I do get why people make that conflation, because just the existence of Israel itself as an ethno state. I mean, who are we kidding here? That's what it is. And so an state, right? Yeah, it fucks up the entire thing. But what else did you say there? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I get it, because that's where the complexities lie. Like, there is a little truth to the fact that this is kind of a complex situation, but it's not in the way people think it is. Right. The complexities lie in the fact that there's a very fine line between being like, you especially these days on social media, you have to be explicitly clear with your words when you are deriding Israel and Zionism. Like, you have to be very clear, to be conscious and sort of compassionate to the fact that overall Jewish people are still a persecuted minority in most of the world. Yeah. And that is a very important thing to keep in mind. And so even if you think you're not saying something wrong, or if you think what you're saying is like it's just against Israel, you still have to make sure you're not even like approaching the types of words and the language and the types of arguments that anti-Semitic people make, which is crazy, because we're experiencing, it's ever more important now, because I don't know if you've seen this on Twitter, but a lot of anti-Semitic pages have now hopped on the Palestinian cause, and that's fucking muddying the waters, dude. It's muddying the fuck out of the waters. What do you think about it?
I hate it so much. Like you will see, like I kind of think of Jackson Hinkle as a guy, I think, who was a huge anti-Semite and everything. And Candace Owens. Do you remember earlier this year, Candace Owens was making all these tweets talking about how, hey, what Israel's doing is fucked up. That's not cool, but genocide and shit. And listen, it's like, the blind squirrel finding a nut every once in a while, because like she is not saying this because she has a deep love for the Palestinian people. No, she's saying it because she's anti-Semitic. Like, that's why she's saying it. And so it's really unfortunate that you have people who are against the actions of Israel because they actually do have bigotry towards Jewish individuals, that you're like, oh God, like I want nothing to do with you guys, just so you know. Do not hop on and retweet my shit. It's terrible.
That's the one thing I feel like we as activists in this conversation could be a little better at discerning, because I have seen some pretenders amongst our midst, and I will see that a lot of them go like reposted, retweeted, uncritically. Like, these pages are uncritical. Like, I'm talking about I don't know if you've heard of the Twitter account Censored Men.
Oh yeah.
That's like a deeply right-wing anti-Semitic page. But they're like, I see them on my For You page all the time now, because they're consistently posting pro-Palestine content. And it's going like, the comment sections are uncritically in support. They're getting tons and tons of likes, tons and tons of retweets, so on and so forth. And I haven't really seen any prominent people call them out and be like, yo, this page is not what you think it is. So it's one of those things where I feel like, because I will say that Jewish people had, after October 7th, and this is where compassion comes in, after October 7th, there was a lot of talk about how Jewish people around the world felt unsafe. And that's a perfectly valid thing to feel, especially, in the wake of that attack. Like, I, completely understand. And they are also Jewish people, a lot of Jewish creators, anti-Zionist Jewish creators, were talking about how us non-Jewish anti-Zionist people don't do a very good job of like differentiating and making Jewish people feel comfortable in these spaces, and by not letting like anti-Semitism, sprout. And that's one of those critiques that like I feel like has some merit, you know, because of what I'm seeing online with, you know, all these right wing accounts being like reposted and then liked and then just like blasted and thrown out into the algorithm that I feel like we, you know, we low key could do a little better job at. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, I guess you could extend benefit of doubt that they don't know anything about the page; they just see the post. But I
Right.
mean, if it's called censored men, you probably know where
Yeah, right.
where they're coming from. I don't think that like if I
Right.
see N wokeness tweet something I agree with, like, oh, okay, all right, I'm not don't think I'm going to share this
Yeah.
message here, and it's we could like I think like I try to make it as clear as possible, which is why you know I do my best to specifically say that I'm criticizing usually the IDF because that's very specific,
Right.
and then and the
Right.
Israeli government. But you
Right.
know it's like these people would not be putting you know voicing their opposition against Palestinian genocide if we were the ones killing Palestine. I guarantee they'd be fine with that. Like
Oh, for sure.
they'd be
Oh,
totally
for
cool with
sure.
that. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
the religious bigotry is a big deal, but you know it just has to go a certain way. But there's
Right.
hierarchies of who you can be bigoted against, you know, with these folks.
All right, go
Hey,
ahead.
folks, hope you
I'm
enjoyed what
ready.
you saw and heard. I'm sure you did. We are professionals after all. But feel free to, you know, like, share, comment, subscribe to your friends, family, enemies. We don't even care. Give it to anyone you can. But we'll toss it over to Ate. Where can we find your stuff, my man?
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. If you would like to see, I mostly specialize in talking about films and TV shows from, you know, a progressive leftist lens, and just from like a highly media literacy analytical perspective. And if you'd like to see more of that, you can find me on TikTok. That's where I post the bulk of my videos. That's where I do the most of my work at Destructo Jugo, Jugo with 2 U's. And to follow me on YouTube at Destructo Jugo, where I will start posting video essays, and Destructo Jugo on Instagram as well. So, thank you for anybody watching. This was great.
Fantastic, fantastic, man. If you guys trust me, and of course you do, yeah, absolutely should trust Ate. He makes some amazing stuff, and I've been following for a long time, and I cannot recommend him enough. Thanks a lot, guys.